All right, Sydney, back in the Bernie and Sid show on our highly anticipated and, I might add, wildly successful debut week. We continue with our roster of A-list guests, and we save the best for last, the best by far.
Yeah, it doesn't get bigger than this.
New York. We welcome the world's most famous New Yorker in history. This man is single-handedly restoring the country to greatness. The kid from Queens, President Donald J. Trump. President Trump, welcome to the brand new Bernie and Sid in the Morning Show on WABC. Thank you, sir.
Well, congratulations. I'll tell you what, I haven't done one of these phoners in a while. I used to do them. Hey, Bernie, I used to do them all the time. You know
That's right. I fully recollect.
This is an honor. Great show. Bernard has been a friend of mine for so long, and Sid, you too, but I've known Bernard for... We don't want to say how long, right, Bernard?
No, it's been a while. It's all been good, though. It's a great relationship.
It's been good. And you've been so great and so nice, and I appreciate it. And so when you asked me to do the show, I said, I'm going to take a couple of minutes. I'm going to do that show in between North Korea and Iran
and I got to tell you,
all of the other
that's the kind of guy you are, sir. That's why we love you. I swear to you.
You're multitasking. You know, and I'll be honest, Mr. President. Now, this is Sid now talking, of course. You and Bernie are very, very close. Bernie has been a major supporter of yours for day one. Right. I have wavered, to be honest with you. But I'm going to say this, and I think this is what's going to bode well for you in 2020. I'm one of those guys who didn't buy in right away, I'll be honest. I love you, don't get me wrong. But I thought some of the things that you talked about you couldn't do. And the truth is that a year into your presidency, you've completely converted me. You could ask Bernie, I've done a complete turn here.
Total.
And and the things that you promised in your campaign, Mr. President, to your credit, you have done. And we both think you're doing a terrific job.
That's great. That makes me feel good. You know, if you look at from judges to regulations to the biggest tax cut in history, and we got no Democrat help or support on the tax cut, and now it's become really popular. And now we have to take over. We have to do something with respect to China. You know, the $500 billion a year deficit, the other presidents decided they couldn't handle it or didn't want to handle it. We have no choice. And we're going to do a great job of it. It's going to be fair. And it's going to be great for this country, but we had no choice. We have to do it.
We have to fight for it.
But so many things. Somebody actually said the other day, Trump actually fulfilled more promises than he made. I said, that's an interesting way of looking. But
without a doubt,
we've done good, and the economy is really strong.
Right. The economy, foreign policy, what you're doing at the border. Listen, President Trump, despite the unprecedented barrage of hate, the orchestrated venom, the lies from the dishonest rats in the media. Not only are your poll numbers going up, but we actually have a pro-Trump TV show. They're popping up. Things are turning around.
Right. Your friend Roseanne, that's exactly right. But, you know, a poll just came out, Rasmussen. It's now 51.
Yes.
And they say that it's 51, but add another 7 or 8 points to it. That's almost embarrassing for me to tell you because they don't want to talk about it, but when they get into the booth, they want to vote for Trump.
Just like the election.
People know what's going on.
Well,
very important. The border is very important now. That's a big, big subject. And, you know, we're stopping them. We called out the military. We're calling out the military, and it's a very, very powerful subject for this country and important.
The last thing I would ask you, though, is you mentioned China, President Trump, and the market's had a couple of rough days. But obviously, since you've taken over, it's been incredibly great. Record numbers. No one's ever done what you've done with the stock market, even through some of these rougher days. But there is this fear, of course, about a trade war and all that. But we contend, me and Bernie, on your behalf here, that if it does get to that, hey, it's about time. I mean, how many decades do we have to go where they've got a huge surplus and we've got a horrible deficit? So if it comes to that, so be it, right?
Well, fellas, we've already lost a trade war. We don't have a trade war. We've lost a trade war because for many years, whether it's Clinton or the Bushes or Obama, all of our presidents before have, for some reason, it just got worse and worse. And now it's $500 billion in deficits and a theft of $300 billion in intellectual property. So you can't have this. Now, the easiest thing for me to do would be just to close my eyes and forget it. If I did that, I'm not doing my job. So I'm not saying there won't be a little pain, but the market's gone up 40%, 42%, so we might lose a little bit of it. But we're going to have a much stronger country when we're finished, and that's what I'm all about. We have to do things that other people wouldn't do. So we may take a hit, and you know what? Ultimately, we're going to be much stronger for it. But it's something we had to do. And ultimately, if you take a look, it's not only trade with China, it's everybody. So we're renegotiating NAFTA. the European Union really blocks us out. They have barriers. We can't sell our products, I mean, to a large extent, into the European Union, and yet they have their cars pouring into us, you know, the Mercedes and the BMW, they're pouring in. With China, it's interesting. So if they sell a car, it's 2.5% tax.
Right.
If we sell a car to them, it's 25% tax. Now,
Right.
somehow that doesn't work.
No, it doesn't.
So, you know, so we have to straighten it out, and we will straighten it out. I have a lot of respect for President Xi. We have a very good relationship, and I hope we work it out.
Hey, New Yorkers, Mr. Trump, President Trump, I should say, who voted for you, they love you more now than they did on Election Day, if that's possible. Putting America first, you've come through. And at these rallies, you're like the calm at the center of the storm. You show up at these rallies, and you're beautiful, wonderful, fantastic, funny, relaxed. And last year at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, you held a rally instead of going there. So my question to you is, will you do the same thing this year, the night of the White House Correspondents' Dinner?
Well, you know, I did the Gridiron Dinner a few weeks ago, and that was really terrific. We had a lot of fun, and it was good. But I sort of feel that the press is so bad. It's so fake.
Yeah.
It's so made up. I mean, sources say, and they have no sources. They're like novelists. I call them novelists. They make up the sources. Now, in some cases, there are sources, but then they won't do it correctly either. But in many cases, they literally make up sources. You know, 9 sources within the White House have said there are no 9 sources. So I just think that I want to get it straightened out with the press before I do it. So it's probably pretty unlikely I won't do it. I didn't do it last year. I had a rally instead, which was great.
It was great. It was much funnier.
Right, and the dinner was a massive failure.
Yes,
definitely. So I'm going to turn you.
It's one of those things. So I probably won't do it.
Okay, last one from me, President Trump, from Sid. I'm going to turn you from President Trump, who, again, we both think you're doing a fantastic job. Back to Donald Trump, the New Yorker. You ready?
Go ahead.
It's opening day in New York. The weather's lousy. It's still going. But you've got tickets, box seats, to both the Mets and the Yankees. Where does Donald Trump end up, in the Bronx or in Queens?
Well, you're going to get me in a lot of trouble, but I think both teams, because, you know, I know even the players, okay, in a lot of cases, because, you know, I'm a baseball fan, and I like both teams. Randy is so great. Will Ponds are really good people, and so don't put me in that position, fellas, okay? I will say this.
We withdraw the
question. Both of
question.
them are exciting. You know,
Yes.
they have some pretty good, and the Yankees, what they did with Stanton, that's going to be, I think that's going to be a great, you know, that's one that almost, you know, famous last words. That's a player that almost can't fail, but I guess, you know, people have said that about players before.
Right, true.
Only to have a bust, but I think he's going to be great. And you really do. You're going to have 2 exciting teams that I want them both to do well. I hate to be political. See, in the old days, I wouldn't have answered the question that way. In the old days, I would have told you. But look, I really like the Will Ponds a lot, and Randy Levine and the Steinbrenners. These are phenomenal people. And so I'll take a pass, but I really enjoy both teams a lot.
President Trump, we're going to let you go back to running the country, but thank you so much for appearing on the, congratulating us on the new show, the Bernie and Sid Morning.
Congratulations, really. And I really like that what he said, Bernard. He's wasn't so much of a fan, and now he's a fan.
No,
that makes me feel good, right?
I have to tell you, it took me a while, but I turned him around.
That's good. It must have taken you well. Hey, listen, congratulations. That's big stuff, fellas. A show like that is big. And do well, and God bless you both.
Thank you, President Trump. Thank you.
You as well. God bless yourself. The president on the Bernie and Sid Show. Oh, man, I love that, man. We're coming right back on the Bernie and Sid Show right after.
We will make America great again.